Hare Krishna. So let's start with a small prayer. Nama Om Vishnu Padhaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarini Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaurav Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam bhagavatam gayate girimadripadam. Vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam. Parama Ananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna, all devotees. Welcome you all to the day 3 of Discover Yourself sessions. Series of 6 sessions which is going to give you a nice prelude to the important topics from Srimad Bhagavad Gita. For the past 2 days, we have been looking into quite an important topic. The first topic being search for happiness. So we all wanted to be happy, but unfortunately, all of us are put under 4 types of miseries: birth, death, old age, and disease. Because of which we are not able to enjoy happiness eternally. Since we all have this material body, and material body has its own limitations, and all the more we are trying to find happiness in the wrong place. So then comes the question, what is the right place to look for happiness? So the right place to look for happiness is in realizing the Supreme. So then comes the question, who that Supreme is. So that's what we looked into yesterday. So who really is the Supreme? What are the qualities of that Supreme? Can anyone become Supreme? So all these aspects we looked into yesterday. So basically, Supreme or Bhagavan, as we call in Sanskrit, is a term used to represent a person who possesses 6 qualities, 6 opulences in full. Right. So we saw what those opulences are, and we also saw practical proofs of how we can understand the presence of God. God cannot be seen by our physical senses because we all have our own limitations. So our senses are not perfect. We tend to commit mistakes. We have cheating propensity, and we also fall into illusion. So because of all these limitations, we are not able to see the Supreme Lord face to face. So we saw all that, and now the next question is, who really are we? Right? So we seem to be not 100% happy all the time because we are in the wrong place. So this material world is a place of temporariness and misery. So that is because we all have a wrong identification. Right? So why we are suffering? Because our identification is also not correct. So then what really is our identification? Who really are we? So that would be the logical question that one should be asking next. Right. So with that note, let us begin today's session. Before I begin the session, any questions from any of the devotees? From yesterday's session, of course.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dhanavad, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Prabhuji, like, 3 main points சொன்னீங்க இல்லையா நேத்து, like 3 அது மட்டும் ஒரு சின்ன ரீகேப் கொடுக்க முடியுமா பிரபுஜி?
So you mean the different pramanas, Mataji? Is that what?
Yes, correct, Prabhuji. Yes.
So basically, there are 3 pramanas. Pramana meaning means by which we can understand the Supreme. So the first one is called Pratyaksha Pramana, which means I don't accept somebody as Supreme unless I see him face to face. I realize him by my own senses. So that is what is called Pratyaksha Pramana, which is not possible because we all have our material senses. Our senses are not spiritualized yet. And next comes the Anumana Pramana. So Anumana means guess or speculation. Right? Most of us tend to do that. Who could be the supreme? So we know the three major personalities, Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahma. So often the question arises, who really is the supreme? Because Brahma seems to be the creator, is he the supreme? Shiva is the destroyer, he seems to be having a lot of power, is he the supreme? Or is it Vishnu who is the maintainer, that is the supreme? So basically, we keep guessing and we read scriptures, but we also keep guessing. So that is what is called Anumana Pramana. And finally comes Shabda Pramana. So Shabda Pramana means that which is heard. So we hear from authentic places, authentic personalities. From whom we hear from such personalities who doesn't have these four defects. Or in short, the Vedic scriptures, which was written by the Supreme Lord himself. Hence it is called Apaurushaya. Right? So when we hear the subject matter from such a personality, then we can consider such statement as authentic. Right? So that's what we saw yesterday.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Ganesh.
Thank you. Okay, so any other questions? Fine. So let's get into today's session then. Able to see my screen?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, thank you. As always, we'll begin our session with a prayer. Prayer to Shri Radha Krishna. Let's all loudly chant Hare Krishna, Krishna
Krishna, Krishna, Krishna,
Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Right. So you'll offer our prayers to the Lordship because we are, after all, trying to understand the Supreme. So we need the mercy of the Supreme. So let's offer our respectful prayers. So the topic for today, who am I? So this is something which we don't generally ask, right? So we begin to identify ourselves with our personality. Say we see a person, then the person's physique or his personal appearance is what comes to our picture. Right. And we also have a name given to each one of us. So we identify ourselves with that name, and that name in turn points to that person's body. Are we this body? Is the next question. Because we all know that in this world, each one of us are going to live for a certain duration of period. We are not going to live here eternally. Right? So it could be 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years in Kali Yuga. Rarely we see people who live beyond 100 years. Right? So there are some exceptions, but most often the lifespan ranges between 40 to 80. Right? And is there life after death at all? Is it a fact or is it a fiction? At least in our Hindu culture or our Hindu philosophies, most of the Hindu philosophies, we tend to agree that there is life after death. So there is Punarjanma, which is what we say commonly in all the places, right? Whether you go to the north, south, east, or west of India, this concept of rebirth is always there. But of course, Kali Yuga is progressing. People are also becoming more materialistic. They don't value our spiritual background or our spiritual culture. So we also tend to adopt Western culture a lot. So which means generally the modern generation, the younger generation, so they don't have so much of spiritual understanding. So a sense of atheism is prevailing among younger generation. So that would go away once somebody studies Bhagavad Gita. So that is why Bhagavad Gita is the most important scripture in our Hindu philosophy. Who are you? So that's the question in front of us. So, as I was mentioning, the Western culture has corrupted our society to a greater extent. So, Western culture is mainly based on scientific understanding, things which needs to be proven and seen through our physical eyes or our physical senses, right? So, to our physical eyes or our senses, we are able to see a material body in front of us. The material body has different elements, which are all material elements. So when you look from a scientist's point of view, they consider everything as chemical, right? So does that mean that we are a bag of chemical? Can we say like that? Because our body contains water, it contains acid. No? So then scientists automatically tend to say that this body, so it is a bag of chemical. But if you analyze a bit more, we are not just a matter which is combination of different chemicals, but rather we all have emotions as well, right? So we feel happiness, we feel sadness, and we feel pain, we feel pleasure, so on and so forth, right? So which means it cannot just be a matter, right? So matter, for instance, so this is matter, it doesn't have emotions, whereas human beings are living entities in general, we have emotions. So then it cannot be just a bag of chemical. So if not, then what is our true identity? Right? So that's the question in front of us. Yesterday, we ended the session saying we go by Shabda Pramanam. Shabda Pramanam means what? That which is heard from authentic scriptures. So we have Vedic scriptures. As I mentioned yesterday as well, there are 4 Vedas, 108 Upanishads. There are 18 major Puranas. Besides that, we also have Itihasas like Ramayana and Mahabharata. And inside Mahabharata, there is a beautiful section called Bhagavad Gita, which is like essence of all Vedas. That's why it is also called Vedanta. Vedanta means the end of all Vedas. So in the Bhagavad Gita, we have clear-cut understanding of what our identity is. Especially in the 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, we get that information quite clearly. Krishna is explaining in Gita. He says, you are not this temporary body, but you are an eternal spirit soul. What do we mean by eternal spirit soul? Can somebody say what really that means?
Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes.
We all are part and parcel of Krishna.
Okay.
We are spirit soul, whereas he is this supreme soul or Paramatma from whom we are being disintegrated. So we are all spirit. We are part and parcel of Krishna.
Okay. So my question: what is eternal spirit soul?
Permanent.
The soul does not die. There's no end to the soul.
Yeah,
the temporary body comes to an end, but your soul lives on.
Absolutely. Right. So that is why we call the
soul is eternal.
Spirit soul as eternal. Thank you. Thanks. So let's see a little bit more from the Bhagavad Gita, especially the 2nd chapter, which is talking about the aspect of soul. Vasamsi dhirnani yata vihaya navani krishnati naroparani tata sharirani vihaya jirnani anjani samyati navani dehi. So this is the 22nd sloka from the chapter 2, which says that as a person puts on new dresses, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. Krishna is beautifully giving an analogy here. Just like yesterday, I came in a different dress. Today, I have come in a grey color dress. Does that mean that I am different? Not really, right? I am still the same. Gauranga Prasad Das. So similarly, at the time of death, though the body perishes, but the soul within, the spirit soul within, it goes on to the next body. The spirit soul accepts another body, just like how we change our dress. Right? So that is what Bhagavad Gita is giving this knowledge. And further, in the 13th sloka, Krishna is beautifully saying, Dehi nasminyata dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara ta dehantara praptir hirastatra namuhyati. Can somebody read this translation on the left side?
May
Can I,
Prabhuji?
ba-
Yes, Lakshmi Mataji can read.
As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Thank you. So, if you all understand or know a little bit about the scenario in which Bhagavad Gita was spoken, Arjuna was in complete bewilderment. So he did not want to fight against his kinsman because he was showing wrong compassion. He thought, how can I kill these people? I would incur sin. What happiness can I derive by killing these people? After all, they are my relatives, my guru, my grandfather, my cousins. I don't want to kill. My hands are trembling, my mouth is drying up, my Gandiva is not standing on its end. So Arjuna was in complete perplexity. It is in this context that the Supreme Lord is speaking this verse. Oh, Arjuna, a dhira or a sober person does not lament for something which is not permanent. Your body or their body is not permanent. What is permanent is the spirit soul. Just like, you are born, you grow up to become a boy, then you become youth, and then old age, and finally die. Right? Similarly, at the end of death, the spirit soul, again take another body. So all these kinsmen in front of you, anyhow they have to die at one point or another. So why are you unnecessarily lamenting? Right? So this is how Krishna is counteracting Arjuna's lamentation. So these are some of the aspects of spirit soul or the Atma which are mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. And Prabhupada often gives this example of car. Right? So car has different parts. Horn is there, you have headlights, radiator, you have the four wheels, you have the engine, so on and so forth. But with all these different parts, can the car function automatically? It is not possible, right? Unless you have a driver who can drive, who can hold the steering wheel and start driving, car doesn't move. Of course, one may say that these days you have driverless car, which are getting invented in the Western countries. But whether you have driver car with a driver or driverless car, ultimately you are going to simulate a driver, right? You need to have a technology so that you can manage your car, right? So a driver is important. Similarly, we may have different parts of our body. I can speak through my mouth, I can see from my eyes, my heart is functioning properly, it is pumping blood, my hands and legs are moving, right? So all these different human parts are working perfectly well. How is it working? Because I am alive and my soul is present in my body, right? The presence of soul is actually making this body function. But unfortunately, the modern day technological world is actually driving us towards temporary material body satisfaction. Prabhupada often talks about parrot or a bird within a cage. So we need to take care of the bird within the cage, not that daily you wake up and then you polish the cage nicely, and then you expect that the bird should grow very nicely. No, that is not possible. You need to feed the bird, right? Similarly, our real identity is that we are all spirit soul. What we are doing, we are only pampering our body. We are taking care of this body so nicely, and we are attached to people whom we identify as their bodies, right? Forgetting the fact that we are not this body. We strongly identify ourselves with our body. But unfortunately, we are not this body, but we are the spirit soul, and we don't take any steps at all to take care of the spirit soul. So that is the current state of affairs. So then one may question, so Prabhu, I can see my hand, I can see my eyes. Even when the doctor does surgery, he would be able to see the heart and other parts of the body. But what about soul? What is the proof that the soul exists? Right? So that would be a logical question which any one of us would ask. The beauty about this knowledge of Krishna consciousness is that anything that we say, we have both philosophical as well as a scientific proof, right? Anything for that matter. Yesterday we saw about the existence of God. Scientifically as well, we could clearly see there are creations, there must be a creator, right? So you have this mobile phone, it doesn't jump from the outside world, right? It has to be created by somebody. So that's why we say that God is present. So that is a scientific proof. Similarly, the existence of soul can also be understood both logically, scientifically, as well as philosophically. In the past few slides, we saw statements from Bhagavad Gita about the existence of soul. Now we are going to see some logical proofs for the existence of soul. Proof number 1. How many of you have had the experience of going to a funeral? One or two of you can speak out. You have experience? Be it your relatives or friends, right? Somebody passing away and you
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Hema Malini Mataji. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do we identify that person who passed away as?
Body.
Right? Even the very close relatives of the person who passed away, so they would also identify that person as his body. The first question that we ask is, where is the body? We don't say, where is so and so, Mr. X or Mr. Y. We don't say that, right? Because we all identify ourselves with this body. But the fact is, when somebody passes away, this body is going to be either burnt, or it is going to be it is going to be given to the eagles or vultures, right? Or in some customs, they also bury the body, right? In some form or other, the body is going to perish. We will not be able to see that person again. So this is a common sense that we are not this body. So, and we value a person only as long as the soul exists within the body. So till that time, we go and ask that person, is everything okay? As soon as the person dies, the closest of relatives, as I was mentioning, they are also afraid to go near that person, right? Because they know that that person has gone. Who has gone? The body is still there, which means that you are not this body. So that is a common sense understanding that we are not this body, but rather we are spirit soul. Proof number 2, intuitive understanding. So these are some of the logical reasoning to show that the soul is present. Srila Prabhupada in many of his books talks about these. Okay, so what do you mean by intuitive understanding? So I can say that, so I have this bracelet. So I will say it is my bracelet. Similarly, in the slide here, the person may say this is my watch. And what is this? This is my wrist. So on and so forth. I can say this is my eye, these are my ears, this is my head. And finally, we will also say this is my body. When I say this is my body, so what does this word my represent then? I cannot be my body, right? So that person, which is the identification, is not really the body. It should be something else other than this body, right? So this is intuitive understanding, where we can clearly say that we are not this body, but rather we are something else. And proof number 3. What is a symptom of soul? Symptom of soul is our consciousness. So we are conscious, which means the soul is present. The dead body, of course, doesn't have consciousness, which means that the soul is no longer present, right? As simple as that. So consciousness is the symptom of the presence of soul. And not only that, there are some scientific and experimentations done in the field of medicine as well, which goes on to prove the existence of soul. What is that? It is called near-death experience. So the person who is mentioned here, Dr. Michael Sabom, he is from the US. I think he is from Atlanta, US, where he did major studies on patients who had near-death experience. So what really is near-death experience? When a doctor, he was encountering a patient who had to be dealt with in a surgery. So it was basically a brain surgery which was happening to that person. And obviously, the person was given with anesthesia and his eyes were blindfolded, and then his ears were actually, they had actually fixed huge speakers on the person's ears because since they were doing brain surgery, they wanted certain brain signals to be generated so that the surgery can be performed nicely. So they had fixed up a loud headphone on the patient's ears. So obviously the patient would not be able to either see or hear anything. Obviously, when the anesthesia is given, they won't be in their senses. But what happened during the surgery, the person apparently was able to clearly see who were the doctors and nurses that performed the surgery. So the surgery happened, and post the recovery, the patient was explaining all that the patient saw. What happened was, as soon as the surgery started and the dosage of anesthesia was given, the person came above her body. She went up above her body, and she was able to clearly see with a bird's eye view all the 20 doctors who were performing that surgery. And she was saying, she was able to recollect what happened at that point. She was saying that so-and-so doctor, he was having a knife which was in so-and-so shape, and you were all talking about different aspects, and she was able to exactly point out what they were talking during the surgery, which obviously a patient would not be aware unless he is conscious, right? So then this doctor, Dr. Michael Sabam, he analyzed various other cases as well. Finally, he concluded there is something called near-death experience. So in this case, the body is lying on the hospital bed, but what is it that is able to get out of the body and see and experience what is happening around? So it clearly shows the presence of soul, right? So this is what is called out-of-body experience or near-death experience. One may question, is it something which is going to happen for everybody, Prabhuji? No, not necessarily. I mean, even in the scientific study as well, only few patients had this experience. This is one of the proof to say that the soul exists. Proof number 5, reincarnation. So this is a famous personality by name Ian Stevenson from the psychiatry department of West Virginia, USA. He actually analyzed close to 5,000 cases where the person was able to perceive previous life's experiences. And specifically, he chose samples of children. Why only children? Because his view was that children would not probably lie, right? So even if they had past experiences, we can actually trust children rather than a grown-up adult. So he included many samples of various children who had certain past life experiences. I have actually mentioned one particular experience of a person by name Shukla. Shukla is a small little girl who in her previous life was a person by name Mana Chakravarti. So she was born in West Bengal. As soon as she was born, when she was 2 years old, she started speaking about her past life family. She was clearly saying where she was born in her past life. She pointed out the exact district or a place or a town that she was born, who her husband was, who her father-in-law was, how many children she was having. So all these details she gave to her current parents. So the parents were surprised. They could not believe this. So what they did, they took her to that place, and this small little girl, she was guiding the entire family to the place where she was existing in her previous life. So she went to that house. She saw all the people in her previous life, her past life husband, father-in-law, children, so on. She was able to talk to them. She was sharing all the experiences from her previous life, which was mind-boggling, right? So this is something which clearly shows that we are not this body. There is something which is traversing from this body to another body. What is that? That is what is called soul, right? And again, in this case as well, it is not necessary that everybody should have past life experience. There is no necessity. only in certain cases, certain individuals, only certain individuals would have such past life experiences, right? From this, we can clearly understand the concept of reincarnation, which goes to show that spirit soul is indeed present. So why don't we remember our past lives? Basically, it is the blessings of the Supreme Lord. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto matta smritirnyanam apohanam cha. I am the one who is giving you remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. Whatever we are able to remember, it is all because of the mercy of Supreme Lord. And things that we forget, it is also the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Just imagine, so I am now in my 40s, right? Do I remember what happened to me when I was 7-month-old or when I was 5-year-old? No, not necessarily. I don't remember. Then why should I remember my past life? Right? So this is actually a blessing of the Supreme Lord. Why is it called a blessing? Because if we remember, imagine, we remember all our past lives. Maybe in the previous life I was a pig, or in my previous life I was a big demon. So when I start remembering all my previous life activities, obviously I will not be able to have a happy and cheerful present life. I would only be thinking about why at all I did this in my past life, right? So that would be catastrophic. That's why the Supreme Lord wantedly he actually erased all our past life experiences. Only in certain cases, the Lord is giving that past life experience for a reason. Those who had such past life experiences, they are able to have a better spiritual life. That is actually aiding their spiritual life because they obviously understand the existence of soul. Right? So this happens only for few individuals, but not for all of us. Right? So common sense, intuitive understanding, consciousness, near-death experience, and of course, the last but not the least, reincarnation. Right? So these are the aspects by which we can understand the presence of soul. Now, can we see the soul? Right? So that is again a question that would be asked by somebody who only believes in technology, only who believes in scientific proofs, right? So we always want a proof to say that soul exists. I want to see physically. So is it really possible at all? Right? So there is a process to see the soul. If you want to do any physical experiment, we need to go to the Department of Physics. Say, for instance, I want to measure what is the volume of this container. I need to be going to the Department of Physics. I would be having equipments to measure the volume of this container. Right? Similarly, if I have to analyze the composition of a substance, I cannot do that in a physics laboratory. I need to go to a chemistry lab. Right? And again, one more example. If I have to see what all microorganisms are there in a particular sample, if I go to a chemistry lab or physics lab, I won't be able to do anything. So I need a biological laboratory. Similarly, if you want to understand the spirit soul, it can be understood only through the scriptures. We can only get the knowledge about the spirit soul through the scriptures. And of course, we will be able to realize the presence of spirit soul when we start practicing what is mentioned in the scriptures, what is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. When we practically apply Bhagavad Gita as it is, then we can actually realize the presence of spirit soul. Right? And Prabhupada often says, you chant the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Then one fine day you would actually be able to realize the presence of spirit soul. Right? So this is all possible when we sincerely follow Srimad Bhagavad Gita and render service to Krishna by chanting his holy name. So that is the only way by which we can see the spirit soul. Because whether it is physical element or chemical composition or biological culture study, so these are only material elements, right? So these are matter, whereas spirit soul is not a matter. As the name suggests, it is actually spirit. Matter and spirit are entirely different. You cannot see the spirit soul. It requires spiritual eyes. Right? So that is given once we study scriptures and we start practicing Bhagavad Gita. And after all, the soul is there in all of us. We are the soul. And what is it uncovering? So basically, we are all able to see the eyes, the nose, the mouth, different bodily organs. These are all called gross body, which we can see through our physical eyes. Right? What is this gross body made up of? It is made up of predominantly the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Right? And besides these, we also have what is called as subtle body. Right? So we have our mind, intelligence, and false ego. So these are called subtle body. So gross body is nothing but Sthula Sharir, and subtle body is Sukshma Sharir. Shariram means body, and Sthula Shariram means gross body. Sukshma Shariram means subtle body. Right? So these are all given in Bhagavad Gita. Right? And there is something beyond this gross body and subtle body. And what is that? That is what is called the soul. Right? So this is what all the living entities are made up of. We have our gross body, we have subtle body, which is made up of mind, intelligence, and false ego, and finally the spirit soul. Okay, so some questions or facts about the spirit soul. As I was mentioning, material body would be perishable, right? One day, so we all have certain duration of life. Beyond that, our body is going to go away. But spirit soul is indestructible. Bhagavad Gita, again in the 2nd chapter, Krishna is saying, Avinashi tat vidhi yena sarvam idam tatam vinasam avyayasya nakaschit kartum arhati. Can someone read the translation?
Can I?
Yes, Nagalakshmi.
May I?
Nagalakshmi. Yes.
That which pervades the entire body, you should know to be
Indestructible.
to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy that imperishable soul.
Right? Spirit soul doesn't destroy. So, is my soul the same as yours? So, do we say that only one soul exists?
No.
Right? The soul is an individual. What is the proof? Bhagavad Gita again, 2nd chapter. Natvevaham jatu nasam natvam neme janadipa na chaiva na bhavishyamaha sarve vayam atapparam. Translation, please.
Can I, Prabhuji?
Yes, Mataji.
Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in future shall any of us cease to be. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
So this is spoken by the Supreme Lord to Arjuna. He says, I exist, you existed, and all these kings, right? Duryodhana, Duchasana, so on and so forth. All these people you existed, you are existing now, and you will continue to exist in future. Right? So, soul is an individual, not only for human beings, all living entities. In the previous classes, we saw there are 84 lakh species. Each of these 84 lakh species of living entities have their own spirit soul. Even an ant has a spirit soul. Right? Does the soul have a form? Because our hand, our eyes, so they have a form. But is there a form for a soul? Soul per se does not have a form. Rather, it gives form to the matter. So we get this material body, but this material body, the form of this material body is actually given by the soul. Right? So if I am in a human body, then the body is going to be of this fashion. If I am going to take an animal body, it will be different, so on and so forth. But the soul per se does not have any form as such. And where is it residing? Is it residing at all in the body? It is mentioned in the scriptures that the soul resides in the region of heart. Right? It is there in the region of heart. And one more interesting question is, does soul change with the body?
No, Prabhuji.
No, the soul does not change. My identity is going to be the same. Right? So I was so and so with a so and so material body in my previous life. In my current life, I am having a human body. In next life, I may have a different body. But the soul per se is a constant factor. Right? It is traversing along with me to the next body. And what is the measurement of a soul? So it is hard to measure, but again, the Puranas, the Upanishad, it says that the size of the soul is actually 1/10,000th part of tip of my hair. That is the dimension of a soul. Right? Obviously, you will not be able to see with your physical eyes because, as I mentioned before, soul is not a matter. It is something spiritual. So we will not be able to see with our material eyes. But having, with that assumption, but still, the size of the soul is also mentioned in the scriptures. So just imagine how minute it is. And the soul is there, as we were mentioning, in an ant, in a big elephant, and also in a big whale. But the size of the soul still remains the same. 1/10,000th part of the tip of the hair. So that is the size of the soul, whether it is for ant or elephant or anything. So then comes the question. Yesterday we saw about who God is. Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita, I also existed before, you also existed before, we are all existing now, we will exist in the future as well. Does that mean I and the Supreme Lord are one and the same? Can we become God?
No,
No.
no, no.
No, Prabhuji.
That is
No,
not,
Prabhu, no.
right? So that is not possible at all.
No. It's not
We are
possible.
all same in quality but different in quantity. Prabhupada says, quoting from the scriptures, right? So we all, so you take a small cup of water from the ocean, and you have the big volume of water in the ocean, right? Both these water would be salty. If you analyze the composition of the water in the cup as well as in the ocean, both would be salty, right? But the quality is same, but still the quantity is completely different. Ocean water is, you can say, infinite, whereas the water on the cup is finite. Similarly, the spirit soul and the supreme soul both of us have the same quality. What is that quality called? Sat Chit Ananda. Right? Eternal, full of knowledge, and full of happiness. So that is the quality of a soul and the Supreme Soul. So we are
Prabhuji,
both the same in terms of quality, but the quantity is different. Sorry, I will take questions towards the end, Mataji. I'll just wrap this up.
okay, okay, ma'am.
So we are not God, but we are gods. We are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Difference in control. I may be thinking that I am controlling this entire world, but no, you are not able to control even your own body. Right? God or the Supreme Lord is supremely independent and he is never controlled. But we cannot say that we are the controller of everything. Right? Spirit soul is always under the control of the Supreme Soul. Right? So we create a plane and then we make it float in the air. But just see what the Lord has created. He has created billions and trillions of planets, which are all floating in their orbit from time immemorial. Right? So they are all fixed up in their orbit and they don't clash against each other. Such a nice collaborative way, they are all able to rotate in their orbit, and so this has been happening since time immemorial, right? So we cannot even create a planet, so leave alone billions and trillions of planets. Right? So this clearly goes to show how the Spirit Soul and the Supreme Lord are different. We are finite, but God is infinite. We are Jivatma and God is Paramatma. Right? So therefore, the constitutional position of a Spirit Soul is that we are all subordinate to the Supreme Lord. Right? And what is it that we need to be doing when we understand that we are the Spirit Soul? We need to feed the bird inside the cage and not just polish the cage. And what is the food for the bird inside the cage? Harer Nama, Harer Nama, Harer Namaiva Kevalam. Kalau Nastyeva, Nastyeva, Nastyeva Gatiranyata. So this is a statement from Brihanaradiya Purana, which says Harinamam, the holy name of the Supreme Lord, is the only way, is the only way, is the only way. It is mentioned 3 times. Harer Nama, Harer Nama, Harer Nama, 3 times. Kalau Nastyeva, Nastyeva, Nastyeva. So that is the only way by which we can overcome the miseries of Kali Yuga, all the shortcomings of Kali Yuga. Right? So the only hope for us is to chant the holy name. By chanting the holy name, we are able to realize that we are the Spirit Soul, and the constitutional position of the Spirit Soul is to render service to the Supreme Soul. Right? So we come to that understanding by chanting the holy name, right? And also by reading Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So summary of the class today. So we saw the proof of existence of soul. And can we see soul? It is not really possible through our physical eyes. Soul can be realized by chanting the holy name. And what is the composition of body? We saw that as well. And we also saw different aspects of the soul. What is the size of the soul? Is it destructible? Is it also changing with the change of body? So all those aspects we covered today. And finally, are we the same as the Supreme Lord? Can we become God? The answer is a definite no. We all are subservient of the Supreme Lord, and our position is to serve, render service to the Supreme Lord. And how best can we render service? By chanting His holy name. Right? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this is what we call as the holy name or the Maha Mantra. I request all of you to kindly chant at least 108 times this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So this is the only means by which we can actually realize our own self. right? Self-realization is possible through the chanting of the holy name. So that is the essence of Bhagavad Gita. The Lord clearly says, Manmana bhavamat bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishyasi satyevam pratijani priyosi. So basically, you always think of him, you remember him, you worship him, you pay obeisances to him. By doing all that, you are able to realize the Supreme Lord. So with that, I will end my class here. I have stopped the sharing as well. Any questions that any of you have? I can already see hand raised by Anila Mataji. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare.
Why are we not given any powers, Prabhuji? We are also a part of God, no?
What kind of powers you are talking about, Mataji?
Some power, small, but we can change something which is in front of our eyes. We see something bad happening. If we had some powers, we could have just corrected it, not like that.
Right. Because we don't have the vision of the past, nor do we have the vision of the future. We may be thinking that what is happening is bad. I want to correct this. But nothing is happening without a reason. We won't be able to understand that with our limited intelligence. Whereas a Supreme Lord, he knows everything. He is the knower of everything. He is sitting in the heart of all the living entities. He knows the past, present, and future of all of us. So he knows what to be done to a particular individual, and if a particular individual is suffering in the hands of another individual, then it is all because of predestiny. We cannot change anything because we don't know the past. That's why the Lord has not given that control.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Yes, Leela Shakti Mataji. Or
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Pandya Mataji.
Prabhuji, like you gave one example, no, Prabhuji, like that ocean and a little bit of water.
Right.
அதுதான் வந்து like அச்சிந்திய பேத தத்துவமா பிரபுஜி ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் ஃபார் தட் நான் கரெக்டான்னு தெரிஞ்சுக்கிறதுக்காக கேட்குறேன்.
Yeah, so that is correct. So that is what the philosophy also is, that we are all one in quality with the Supreme Lord, but the quantity is different. Yes, so that is the example.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Any other questions? Seema Vilasini Mataji, any question is there for you?
No, sir.
Okay, I saw you unmuted, so I thought. So let me see in the chat box if there are any questions. Okay, so okay, any other questions from anybody else? We still have a couple of minutes.
Excuse me, Hare Krishna Prabhu, not a question, but we had a discussion with, I'm a school teacher actually, retired teacher. We had a great discussion in the class where the students did not understand, did not believe that even animals and birds have souls. They did not accept at all. It was very difficult for me to make them understand even birds and animals have souls.
Right.
And later with great difficulty, then I brought in Bhagavad Gita and all that. But still, some community and other people, they have a say that only humans have souls and all other things are soulless. So I said, how can it be? Then I said, dog also has a soul.
Right.
But this is very difficult. Youngsters, they don't have this knowledge and they don't accept also. They argue so much. I found it very difficult to make them understand.
Right. That's why.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah, that's why Srila Prabhupada's philosophy is not just from the scriptures, but he also gives scientific proofs as well. Krishna consciousness is quite scientific. The examples that we saw, Mataji, it is not just from Bhagavad Gita, isn't it? We also saw some logical connect to say how the soul is existing. If you talk about consciousness, is a dog not having consciousness? Is a cat not having consciousness? If you cut the throat of a cat, it is going to cry in pain, right? And similarly,
Yes.
as far as the plants are concerned as well, even scientifically, you can go by science. Science clearly says that plants also have life. It grows, right? You put a seed, and from seed comes a small sapling. The sapling grows into a small plant, and then it becomes a big tree. How is it possible without the presence of the soul? In the scriptures, it clearly talks about 84 lakh living entities. So in that, it says that 1 lakh categories of plants are there. Clearly says. I think it is 1 lakh, if I am not wrong, or 10
Yeah.
lakh maybe.
Yeah, living beings and non-living beings, all things are there in science. But that's the model that the other community has taught them. So they did not accept, and they said, let me not bring in my religion there. It's no religion here. Every living being in this world has soul.
No, the
That's
thing
it.
is, there is no. So one point that we need to understand is whether it is this religion or that religion, every religion has its own scripture. Right? You take the Bible or the Quran or the Bhagavad Gita. There should not be any contradiction at all between the scriptures. In fact, Prabhupada says there are 10 commandments, and the first commandment is thou shalt not kill. Right? It is not said thou shalt not kill human beings. He clearly said thou shalt not kill, which means whether human being or animal are one and the same. They all have the soul within. That is a beautiful interview of Srila Prabhupada with a French bishop. Right?
Yes,
So,
yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu. Very interesting interview that is. Very interesting.
yeah. So Prabhupada very clearly contradicts and proves that the soul is existent in both animals as well as human beings. Is that fine, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhu. Absolutely fine. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, Anila Mataji, you have more questions?
Prabhuji, if the non-veg people who eat non-veg chicken and all, na, will they be born as chicken themselves in next birth?
See, we are going to see the aspect of karma tomorrow. That would give more clarity into that. There are certain rules and regulations mentioned in the scriptures, but of course, because we all have certain habit which we inherit from our family or from our community or background, it may be difficult for us to adapt to those new habits which are mentioned in the scriptures. It will take time, but no need to scare anybody here that eating non-vegetarian you are going to become so and so in the next life. I don't want to scare anyone here. Let's focus on the do's first. Now I understand that I am the spirit soul. I am not this body. What is it that I am going to do now? Whether you are a vegetarian or non-vegetarian, you are all the spirit soul. As a spirit soul, I must be rendering service to Krishna or the Supreme Lord. So that is the main takeaway from today's class. Rest of the things we will take it in a slow dosage so that it does not overburden others.
Okay, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Any other final question? Okay, so if there are any more questions, you can actually note it down, and we will take some questions tomorrow, I see one final question. When it comes to eating, is it more important for sense control or non-violence? So can you elaborate that question a little bit more, Mayu?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
What I meant is when it comes to eating meat or eating whatever you want versus prasadam, is it more for sense control or non-violence? Like, do you know what I mean?
Right, right. So, so whether you are eating a vegetarian or non-vegetarian food, both has an aspect of sin involved, because even in eating a vegetarian food, we are actually killing so many unseen organisms, right? So that's what Prabhupada says in his books. So, but of course, the gravity of karma that is involved in eating a non-veg food is little high, definitely. But the aspect is specific to your question. It is more of purifying our senses and becoming more Krishna conscious. So that is the whole idea, not just avoiding sinful activity or committing non-violence. More than that, we want to basically engage our senses in the Lord's service.
Even plants have souls, no, Prabhuji. We are eating plants.
Yes. Yes. Is that answering your question, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for all your patience. See you all tomorrow again at 8 o'clock, 8 at night, with an interesting session. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai.
Jai.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.
Jai
Hare
Shri
Rama,
Krishna,
Hare Rama,
Prabhupada.
Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Kalpatarubhya.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Manjaya
Thank
Kalpatarubhya
Satchidanand
Thank you,
Bhavani
Prabhuji.
Vaishnavebhyo
Patitanam
Namah.
Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah.
you.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.